Hello, everyone, and welcome to Podfluxxx episode 37, the first show of the new year on the first day of the new year. Hey, Rick, how was your New Year's Eve?
It was loud, a lot of fireworks, Mexicans shooting in the air,
hmm
a lot of that going on in San Antonio.
I
So,
didn't realize that was exclusive to New Year's Eve.
yeah, I guess. I don't know.
I set a new record last night, and
Oh,
I was asleep by 9:30 p.m.
wow.
Eastern
Wow.
Standard Time.
Nice.
This will be, I believe, the sixth or seventh year in a row that I did not see a ball drop. We do a gimmick here where we pull up an old ball dropping on video on YouTube at
Oh,
about 8 o'clock, and we have the countdown,
oh,
and the kids think it's real, and we all do Happy New Year and go nuts and tell them it's the middle of the night, and we go home and go to sleep,
oh. So,
and that was fantastic. Also, with yesterday being New Year's Eve, when we were done recording last week, I was like, hey, I'll watch the pay per view. And then since I'll be home, we'll do the show in the afternoon on Sunday. And you were like, yeah, cool. Anything works for me. And I was like, all right, cool. So I hit you up yesterday at 12:25 and I said, hey, Rick, does 1:30 work for you? And 1:30 rolled around and there was no Ricky Reyes. 2:30, and then I got a text message at 3:35 in the afternoon yesterday. Would you care to tell our viewers and listeners what this text message said?
just got up. Uh,
Just got up at 3:35 Eastern. So what time is it in Texaco?
2:35.
2:35 Eastern.
Yeah.
Color me jealous. Color me jealous. Color you
Brown.
right. Again, as long as you said it and not me, I think we're all right. But what we're going to do in this episode is we are going to jump into this weekend's AEW pay per view offering at World's End, live from the Nassau Coliseum on December 30th. Rick, would you care to guess the attendance for at World's End?
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. Did they? It looked well from the way the setup was. It looked pretty full. Uh, was it just about 10,000?
They're listed on Wikipedia as 10,093,
Okay.
which I'm going to say for that building, the renovation for the setup that they had, that looks to be a legit sellout.
Yeah.
So good for AEW on that. I noticed, did you see any footage from last week's Dynamite?
The Dynamite? No.
Well, they ran a smaller venue there, and guess what? It looked full. It looked really good on TV.
Huh.
And this is clearly what they need to be doing
Yeah.
to fill these buildings, the college arenas, stuff like that.
All right.
But how much of this pay-per-view did you keep up with over the weekend?
I was looking into it pretty regularly. That's when I started looking at WrestleTix has people that are there posted pictures of the building. That's when I saw it looked pretty full for the setup they had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I kept up on like every hour or so searching through what was going on. So I don't know. I hear mixed reactions. There was some people liked it, some people hated it. Uh, wasn't a whole lot of in between though.
Yeah. And as the one of us who actually viewed the entire show, when it was over, I couldn't decide if I liked it or didn't like it, which is, I don't know if it's a good or a bad thing, because normally at the end of one of their shows, I'm like, that was trash,
Right.
or, that was surprisingly good. but I'm still like, there was so much about this card and this show that I don't want to say that I didn't like or I didn't care for, but it's more of a I don't care about. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know.
So it was like she's in there. Right. In case you were Ricky, in case you were wondering where my daughter was, she's in there. Um so I didn't watch any of the pre-show, but for what it's worth, Willow Nightingale apparently pinned Chris Statlander. Quiet. Uh Kill Switch. Are you familiar with who Kill Switch is?
No.
They changed Luchasaurus's name to Kill Switch.
Oh, okay. I think I remember Christian bringing that up, right?
Yeah, I guess they changed his name in some point in November. So Kill Switch,
Is he still dressed the same though?
yes, right?
So
But his
Kill Switch
tights
is still
say
a
Kill
dinosaur.
Switch on the apron part. You know how he's
Okay.
like got like the apron, like the loincloth part of his
Oh,
tights?
okay, yeah.
That currently says Kill Switch,
And
where it used to say Luchasaurus.
okay.
So, but apparently he won a 20-man battle royal for a future TNT title match, which is like a cash in on the spot type of match.
Okay, they also beat Statlander
Yeah,
on Long Island.
yes. But I don't know what any of the I didn't watch it, so I don't know if there was nonsense or chicanery or
Doesn't really matter. I mean,
right.
doesn't help at all, but okay.
And then Hook defeated Wheeler Yuta. So I guess Hook took a W for Long Island over the weekend. So,
Yeah,
but
but he's from Brooklyn.
the main show started with an 8-man tag, and it was, I guess, some of the guys that were featured in the Continental Classic. They put an
Uh,
8-man together with those guys. So it
yeah.
was Claudio and Brian and Mark Briscoe and Daniel Garcia against Brody King, Jay White, Jay Lethal, and Roosh. Uh, and it was a typical but above average, I will say. It was a good 8-man tag. You know, it was nothing ridiculous, but nothing to write home about either. There was the typical shotgun spot at the end.
Yeah.
Garcia was getting big pops, for
Hmm.
his thing deal that he does there. And at the end of it, Garcia pinned Jay Lethal. And I just kind of feel like you've got Claudio there, you got Brian Danielson there, you got Mark Briscoe there. If you're gonna pin somebody, like, I don't see why beat Jay Lethal with the most underneath guy in the match. I also don't see why beat Jay Lethal at all when you have Roosh on the team, right? Like,
Yeah.
I would have, if I were putting that together, I'd have pinned Roosh all day with somebody a little,
Higher.
yeah. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I mean, stuff like that, you want to build it up to where the guy getting pinned is going to get the last ditch, he's going to unload all his stuff on somebody at some point towards the very end. Um, I don't know about beating Rush. Like, I like him and I think there's a lot of potential there. I just feel like Jay is they've made him into the fall guy. I feel
Yeah.
like he's always kind of like just not willing, not looking like he's gonna ever win anything big. Uh, really depends on where you're going for the new year or the direction with who you got, there. I mean, if Garcia's getting the biggest pops, maybe this is something for him. Like this starts something. I don't know.
Yeah. But,
So
it's – go ahead.
no, it all depends on what you got coming out of it. That, like there should have been some sort of story going into it, of who's going to get like the next, run at either the champion or a champion, since you got 97 of them.
Right.
You got plenty to pick from, but
And more
should have been something more meaningful. Maybe like even, let Mark Briscoe take the heat, be the underdog in the whole thing, and then blind tag somebody at the very end and come off with that froggy elbow and catch a big win on somebody. Just make it like a moment, especially on a pay-per-view. I would have did something like that where you kind of build it to like like a baby face moment, and then that would have been a promising sign for Mark Briscoe, I think. But I don't know. It all depends on what Garcia is going to do after this. I know that they don't make stuff make sense, so who the fuck knows?
I just, you've got such a rich history there between Mark Briscoe and Jay Lethal. If you're gonna beat Jay Lethal with anybody, I felt like Mark Briscoe would have been the way to go there.
Yeah.
It was also, we'll get to that later when I actually felt it. But Miro in the next match was Miro and Andrade with CJ in a singles match. And they had a really, really good, hard-hitting, fun match, which I was into, and then the crowd was into, and then the finish came, and the finish made no sense.
So, yeah, CJ is with Andrade.
Correct.
At the beginning, at least.
Yes.
Yeah. Then I saw shenanigans or something where, I don't know, did she slap him or something? I saw the finish of the match where he took the kick, 1-2, and then turned over into the clutch.
Yeah.
And then, okay.
Andrade had Miro in the figure 8, the Charlotte deal.
His wife's move.
Right. And then CJ Perry,
right,
like reaches halfway in the ring and slaps Andrade's arms out from underneath him.
Oh.
So like it was like, yeah, it was a classic Vince Russo swerve, bro.
Right.
Like just do it to do it.
Too obvious, yeah.
Right. There was no like stakes in the match. Nothing was on the line. There was no reason for her to wait to the very last second and then screw him over for nothing. You know what I mean? Like it just reason at all.
The whole thing was right. So without even seeing it, did Andrade do something to CJ, maybe to piss her off or anything like that? Like did Miro chase Andrade? He grabbed CJ, put him in between them, shoved CJ, popped Miro, have zoom in on CJ. Now she's seething like that son of a bitch, I'm going to get him. And then
you shut your goddamn logical mouth. Nothing like that happened.
Tony pops up with some powder around his nose. I got an idea.
Bro, we're going to talk about Tony and his nose later. Yeah, nothing.
Nothing of logic to cause for this to happen, to get a reaction, to get some heat on Miro and CJ for the next week, right?
Right.
Correct.
AEW.
Got it.
AEW. So then Andrade, obviously he tapped out to the Guzuzegama there. And the next match, I have a feeling we're hitting like a 19-minute podcast tonight. The next match, Timeless Tony Storm with Luther takes on Riho. This match went, according to Wikipedia, it went 11 minutes and 40 seconds, which just happens to be 10 minutes and 30 seconds too long.
I'm sure.
Just nothing Riho does.
No.
She couldn't slam Tony Storm. Like, she went to pick her up.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, Tony Storm's got that that good. But Riho went to pick her up and got her like almost horizontal and then almost fell backwards, so she just let her go. And Excalibur was like, didn't get all of it. I'm happy that Riho didn't beat her.
Right. Yeah, that's what we were all afraid of.
But there's like, Tony Storm stuff. I couldn't watch the whole match.
Yeah.
Right. My signal was cutting out, and I was like, what a great time for my signal to cut out. So the next morning I went back and I kind of, speed searched through the match to try and find if there was anything that was too terrible or anything good. And it was just like Tony Storm just does what she does, and then Riho's just not good, not believable, and she can't body slam the other 110-pound girl. So thanks for coming, Riho. Now, this next match was originally supposed to be Swerve and Keith Lee.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Just as soon as that feud was like 110% like blast freezer Baskin and Robbins ice fucking frozen cold. Yep. Tony was like, let's put it on pay-per-view. And then Keith Lee was like, because I'm hurt. So they replaced Keith Lee with Dustin Rhodes. And Dustin Rhodes put on like the perfect get over match for Swerve Strickland.
Right.
Obviously, Dustin's gonna know how to do that.
Exactly.
They went about it kind of silly. They did like a stomp on a cinder block to Dustin's ankle or knee. And then the doctors had him like halfway up the ramp. And then Dustin was like, no, man, I can do it. And then he turned around and came back. Which at that point, realistically, like, is that your call now? Once the doctor's like, come on, we got to go.
Yeah.
Like, I guess it's your call to be like, all right, let's go back and do this. Once they did that, I felt like it went a little long. But, it was basically all Swerve. Dustin blew a nice little comeback. And then he got himself in, like, the position where, like, again, it was the Ric Flair at the end of the Shawn Michaels match. It was the, come on, motherfucker, put me down. Swerve gave him, like, two of those big jumping side kicks to the side of the head. Stomp from the top rope, which Dustin sat up for, so he really got to, like, drive through the stomp. It looked really great. But that was it. But it was, for like one of those massacre style get over matches, it's listed here at 9 minutes and 30 seconds. I feel like that was just a little too much.
Sounds like it's just too much with the cinder block thing. Like, I don't like, you could have, like, Dustin could have sold enough, well enough in the ring to get something that Swerve did to him physically to get that same kind of emotion that he was searching for. Swerve stuff looks good, everything he does. So I don't think you needed the cinder block thing.
Right.
Like, I know they're trying to make that like his little go-to, but it doesn't need to happen every show. It doesn't need to happen every match. And if that was a thing that was planned for Keith Lee, it didn't need to happen with Dustin Rhodes because there's not that same heat with those two.
Right.
So
there's no reason.
You know, it's really, yeah, there was no real reason unless it was like, well, we had this plan, so let's do it here. You know, that was stupid. They should have just did, even if it were like Nana kind of hopping up to the apron and then Swerve maybe clipping Dustin's leg with like a chair, like, you know, like a quick shot to the knee or something.
Or even just a
and then just have, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like something more believable and realistic where, you know, Dustin's now down for a while, and let his selling get over. You could have had the doctors run up and check on him on the apron, and then have Swerve drag his ass back in the ring and try to finish him. You know, there's all kinds of different ways you could have did, but the cinder block takes me out of it completely because we all know they tell us it's bullshit, and then they try to go do something like this and expect us to believe that it was real. So it's more bullshit. It's just, you know, that's just bad booking on their end. Like
it just it wasn't.
I get what he's looking for, but come on, man. Like this is like, you're like a replacement, like at this point, right? Like you just want to do just, you know, just enough to get Swerve over and have a good showing, basically. You know, like you don't need, he's not important enough to have a cinder block spot, is what I'm getting at.
The fucked up part about this is when I was watching this match, right, my signal cut out on my first time watching through, and I missed the cinder block spot. And so at the end of the match, I was like, oh man, this was really great. And I kept going with the show. And then the next day, I was coming back through it because I wanted to see like what the spot they did to get the heat on Dustin's leg. And then I saw it was the cinder block, and I was like, oh man, that's bullshit. And it completely ruined it for me. Like, they could have done it with anything, but they picked like the phoniest of phony bullshit to try and use as a gimmick, and it took away, because my opinion the night before was, wow, this was incredible. And then when I saw what actually happened the next day, when I went back to watch the couple minutes that my signal cut out, which the BR Bleacher Report Live app is garbage. It's first run garbage. It is fantastic second day. But its live first run is garbage. So there were a couple of things that I had to go back the next day to look back into, and that was one of them, and I was pissed about that. But the next match was the replacement tag match. So obviously we got no Kenny Omega, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
How do you replace one Kenny Omega? Well, the answer there is with 3 other wrestlers. So it was Chris Jericho, Sammy Guevara, Sting, and Darby Allin to take on Ricky Starks, Big Bill, and the Don Callis family of Takeshita and Powerhouse Hobbs. And Ricky, this was the most uncomfortable match on the card.
It sounds like it.
Okay.
Was it everybody on the left of catering ain't got nothing to do, so follow me? Okay.
So it's the second 8-man offered to you on a pay-per-view, where just 5 days earlier you weren't getting any 8-mans, right? But now you've got 2. And then I don't know if you've caught up on what's going on with Chris Jericho on Twitter.
You mean with him and Cornette, or the Kylie Ray rape thing?
Well, the Kylie Ray rape thing, which was born out of his need to tell Stephen P. New that he's never signed an NDA. Jericho made his entrance.
I thought the NDA thing was about the brawl out.
It was about the brawl out, but Jericho said, I've never had to sign an NDA, which somebody was like, well, I happen to know that's bullshit, and then called him Harvey Weinstein. So, and then the whole Kylie Ray thing started to come to light. So Jericho makes his entrance, and half the crowd is singing Judas, and the other half of the crowd is looking at him like creepy raper. You know what I mean? And then immediately they're not cutting to the crowd singing Judas, which is strange for AEW on a Jericho entrance, right?
Right.
And he's looking out, he's standing at the top of the ramp, and he is, I mean, he's still smart. You know what I mean? He's still Chris Jericho. So he's right there at the top of the entrance ramp, and he's assessing this situation. You know what I mean? He's trying to figure out how he's going to work this. And then they found like 6 people singing Judas, so they cut back to the same 6 people 3 times.
Right.
And then he gets in the ring, and goddamn, direct center across from Hardcan, there's somebody holding up a sign that says World's NDA right over the top of Jericho's head. And it was like, oh my, and it was to the point where like the announcers saw it and they were all like, oh fuck. And then just nobody said anything. So you've got dead air for like 11 seconds.
No.
Yeah. And then every time Jericho was in the ring, the crowd just didn't react to him, or they booed. They did a deal where Ricky Starks tagged in, but like flipped Jericho off and wouldn't work with him and tagged right back out. Every time somebody did something to Jericho was the only time the crowd reacted during that match was when Jericho took something offensive from someone. So it was weird. It was super uncomfortable.
What ended up being the finish? Tell me Jericho went over.
Oh, the finish. God damn. No, Sammy hits the 450 on, I think. Sammy hit the 450. I think it was on Ricky Starks and pinned Ricky Starks. But and then Jericho's trying to call spots for everybody, and he's doing it poorly. Like it was worse than the Fandango WrestleMania match. Like he's literally running across the ring to call people spots, you know, and it's just like, dude, like this. It was, and then Sting went for like a top rope stun gun on I think it was Starks again, but he was like 4.5 feet away from the ropes.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, so like Starks just like goes up and then eats shit, like, and the announcers were like, "No, I was looking for the stun gun there. I was waiting for Bob Uecker to be like, and just a bit outside." Like,
exactly.
It was bad. It went too long. Powerhouse Hobbs is a fucking star. Whenever they like, I understand he works there and you got to take your orders. But there's no, like, when somebody's like, hey, we need you for this 8-man, you got to be like, oh man, my big toe hurts.
Seriously.
He's just getting lost in the shuffle and devalued in situations like this. And that was that. Now, you liked my tweet that night, so we're going to play a game. Okay? Match starts with a ducked underneath lockup, an attempt at a super kick and a miss. Okay? An RKO, which is sold into a corner, stood up into a corner, 12 corner clotheslines, sells out to the next corner, 12 more corner clotheslines, okay, into a splash miss, but then turns back around into a boss man slam. Okay. And then there's a cutoff, a cover, a 2 count, and a cutoff. Can you guess what match this was?
No, because you said Luchasaurus was in the pre-show, right?
Yes.
No, I can't.
Okay. Well, for those of you at home that are playing along with us, if you would have guessed the Julia Hart and Abaddon match, you would be correct.
What the fuck?
Right. So Abaddon goes for like a lockup. Julia Hart cuts underneath it. She
Right.
throws a super kick. Julia Hart, sidesteps it. So Abaddon hits a cutter. Boom. Julia Hart takes the bump, stands back up immediately, sells to the corner, and then the green haired lady clotheslines her, Ricky, a legitimate 12 times. Julia
Oh
Hart
my.
sells out of the corner to the next one. She clotheslines her 12 more times, backs up, goes for a splash. Julia Hart moves out of the way because you've just been RKO'd and clotheslined 24 times. She moves out of the way, comes charging, and then eats a boss man slam. And then kicks out at 2. And the crowd, you could hear mice shitting right in the
Right.
parking lot of the Nassau Coliseum.
Right.
And
What the fuck?
that's where I stopped watching that match.
And they had Statlander in
On
New
the
York, in
pre-show,
Long Island,
losing to
on the
Willow.
pre-show,
Right.
losing to the fern-haired lady.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
That was very sensitive, firmed hair lady. I like that.
Fern, like a plant, the fern plant.
I thought you meant firm, and I was like, well, that's a way of saying it. The next match was my favorite match of the night,
Oh boy.
followed by my second favorite match of the night.
Okay. Here
So
we
the
go.
first match here was the Rated R superstar Adam Copeland, right? Which just doesn't roll off the tongue the same way.
No.
Against the TNT champion Christian Cage in a no DQ match, right? And they put on the best Shawn Michaels Triple H SummerSlam 2002 imitation in the Nassau Coliseum that I've ever seen in my life.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, just the whole psychology of it, fighting around through the crowd. It was a good fight. Christian kept going for Edge's neck. Like Hunter was going for the back. It was It was very, very well put together. They tried a couple of flaming table spots, which Nick Wayne was the victim on.
I saw one of them, yeah.
Yeah, well, Edge just totally powerbombed him past the table.
Past the table, yeah.
And the kid just landed on the top of his head, right?
Yes.
But then sold like he was on fire when he should have been sold like his neck.
I like how he popped up, like sold his back, like I'm on fire. It's like, no, you're not.
No, you're not. Your neck is on fire, and that's because it's broken.
You're brain dead. You're not on fire.
That burning sensation it's not burns.
It's internally. It's internally.
It's called a stinger, son. But they had listen, man, they had a really good fight.
Oh, I'm sure they did.
Great little fight.
Yeah.
And Edge won the TNT championship. Right?
Right.
And then my next favorite match, which was only 11 seconds long, is Lucha Kill Switch comes out.
Right.
And he goes to cash in. And Christian was basically like, just give me that contract. So Christian takes his contract,
Yeah.
signs his name on it,
Right.
spears Edge, and then
Right.
wins the title back immediately. What a piece of shit. It
Right. I was
was
gonna say, what an asshole. Perfect.
it was so good.
Yeah.
It really was. My fucking brain was broken though when Luchasaurus came down and they were like, "Here comes Kill Switch," and like I was looking past Luchasaurus for whoever Kill Switch was,
Right.
and yeah, and then it eventually clicked, and I was like, okay. Uh, the next match was the championship final of the Continental Classic, and just like you predicted, it was John Moxley and Eddie Kingston.
Right.
And Ricky, it pains me to say I enjoyed a good amount of this match.
Okay.
Uh it was very, very, very Japanese heavy,
Mm.
but it wasn't like imitation Japanese heavy.
Yeah.
Moxley like actually tried to make it look like he knew how to work.
Hmm.
There was a point where Eddie Kingston was making fun of him, so he got down on his back into like a jiu-jitsu position.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I mean they were hitting hard. They got a little ridiculous with the you chop me, I chop you back spots and shit, but that's where they started to lose me. But overall, it wasn't terrible. I guess the right guy won, right?
Uh, yeah, I guess. I mean, it was kind of like seen from the beginning, but yeah, I get it.
And then, like, when Eddie Kingston made his entrance here, right, it occurred to me that, like, Eddie Kingston and, you know, Jay Lethal and Jay White and Mark Briscoe and, you know, like all these guys were like coming into the Nassau Coliseum really for the first time,
Right.
you know, and these are a lot of guys that have obviously worked up in the Northeast independent scene, the Ring of Honor
Right.
independent scene,
Yeah.
and have never really gotten a crack at like one of the big buildings. I know the
Mm.
Nassau Coliseum's not really, you know, a big building, but a lot of the, you know, a lot of the guys I just mentioned, Mark Briscoe, like hasn't really, except for he worked the Garden show, right? The
I believe
Briscoes,
so. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know, but I mean, like, you know, Eddie Kingston, like guys like him, or you know, like Jay Lethal, like
Yeah.
they worked the Manhattan Center. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
that was, you
Yeah.
know, their biggest buildings up in this region. Like they never
Yeah.
got really like a crack at the big time up here. So that kind of like had almost like a feel for like nostalgia there. Like not
Right.
nostalgia, but I mean like how is it like?
Prestige. Like.
Yeah, yeah, and
Yeah.
I was like good for these guys, and to watch
Yeah.
Eddie Kingston pick up a win in a building that if you would have asked him 5 years ago if he ever had the chance to work, and he probably would have
Mm.
told you no.
Right. Right.
Uh, it was good for them. Nice feeling.
No, it's good. I mean, the like Eddie winning is a to use an overly used term, like a good story. Uh, like he was kind of like the heart and soul of this whole Continental Classic. But
Right.
with that, you kind of gave it away that he was going to win it all going in as a double champion. I would have not used the double championship at all and had him going as like a huge underdog and kind of book it. I don't know how they would book it with the points and stuff, but book it to where he barely made it into the finals,
Yeah.
or or how they did with I think it was when Omega won the G1, Goto was his opponent, but I think Goto got in because I think Okada and Tanahashi tied or they did a draw, so he got in like not by winning to get in. You know what I mean? Like it was
Good night, love you.
more of a technicality, like Goto gets in if they draw, you know, and then they did that. So it would have been, you know, kind of like, I don't know, I guess Eddie's whole story is like he's not supposed to be there, you know, or if you would have asked him 10 years ago, he would have never expected, because knowing him myself, like, you know, I was running into, you know, we did a lot together, and he kept telling me like, yeah, man, I'm almost done. I'm almost done, before, you know, obviously AEW started. And then when it did start, it was, you know, he certainly didn't think he'd be there.
Right.
You know, so I would have did something like that where then it could have set him up with somebody else, right? Because I think when Goto got, so that's New Japan's way of protecting the G1 too, right? Because like Omega doesn't beat any of the top guys, right? Like he beats the fourth ranked guy, because
Right.
he didn't beat Naito, he didn't beat Okada, he didn't beat Tanahashi, he beat Goto for the G1. So it's a slight on, you know, you won, you know, but you didn't really win, you know,
Yeah,
like
you
the
ain't
big,
won shit.
right,
Like
yeah,
they had him and I don't. I almost said Bryanson 3 times. No matter how many times, no matter how hard my mouth was trying to say Danielson, Bryanson kept trying to
right.
come out.
Words are hard.
Yeah, words, dude. So they tried to they had Danielson and Kingston as the, I guess, the Blue League's
Right. Yes. All.
semi-final on
Mhm.
Dynamite, where I think if that were to have been the final match,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
that would have been, because they had Brian on commentary
Yeah.
during this match.
Oh, okay.
And he was basically saying, the whole time what he's better at than Kingston and what Kingston is better at than him and then Moxley, or Moxley than him.
Right.
And I feel like if we would have had Brian as the overconfident heel to Kingston's, underdog babyface in the final of this, I felt like it would have been a better story than two former best friends who love to fight, beat the crap out of each other for, a title that's influenced by a Japanese tournament that influenced both. It's stupid. One of them is really wordy, and then the other one is this guy thinks he's better than this guy, and he's gonna slip on a banana peel.
Yeah. Totally. It also, to add another layer there, if he would have got into the finals that way, like I said, like by a technicality, Brian could have buried him even more and said,
Mm-hmm.
"You didn't even win to get here." Like,
Yep.
you know, like two other guys lost, and you're what's left. Just like you've been your entire career. You know, you're just what's left here in the Indies and blah blah blah. They could have really like got, like, they would have, if they would have done the finals 2 weeks ago and then let Brian do that promo a week before the or the week
Yep.
of the pay-per-view, that could have really lit Kingston's fire there and set up the crowd to really be like, man, you know, I hope, when you look at it from all angles, Brian should have beaten Kingston, you know, 7 ways till Sunday, but
Mm-hmm.
you could have told that story there a little bit better. And then, you know, if you're looking at it from a long-term perspective, like, then Kingston loses in the finals next year but dominates the whole way, because a lot of times in the G1, what they'll do to protect guys or to pop a new star out of the G1 is have them have the most points at the end, but then somebody has a win over them that gets in, due to the fact that they're tied at like 14-14 each, but so and so beat this guy, so he goes in, and they
Right.
could have had Kingston, dominate the entire G1 or the Continental thing next year, and then lose to the next guy or something like that. I don't know, but I think Brian having that ammunition of that and saying those things and belittling Kingston, because that whole telling the truth and then blend it into a story is what would captivate the crowd, because Brian saying something like that is is 100% true, right? Like telling Kingston, you could have never beaten me, you've never, whatever, you couldn't beat me then, you sure as hell are not going to beat me now, type thing. It could have been so much more there emotionally for Kingston. I would have booked it that way. I would have booked it where he came in as an underdog instead of, holding around two belts the whole time and kind of giving away the fact that he's going to chase his Triple Crown or whatever, just, it was too predictable.
Well, speaking of what's left, I don't know, man. Samoa Joe and MJF for the AEW World Title. It was a good match. It was a really good match.
Mm.
And then the finish was super flat.
I saw, yeah.
And then Joe, well, let's just say it. Joe choked out MJF.
Right.
And then took his title and left.
Right.
Right. And there was a lot to the match, and it was a really, really good match, but that's not what anybody cares about here.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So it's not even worth like talking about the ebbs and the flows of the match. It was basically because at the end of it, Joe put him in the choke. MJF got his armbar. Joe got his choke back. MJF went to sleep. Joe picked up his title and literally turned around and walked out the door. Like, didn't even take a second to, like...
Yeah.
He just literally just took his belt, put it over his shoulder, and walked the F out.
He didn't sit Indian style in the ring while they threw trash and had his friends around him like we did in Deer Park.
No. He didn't wave crying people out of the building like we did. He didn't pick the trash up and throw it back at them like we did. He just left.
Yeah, what an idiot.
What? Yeah, there was like so much more fun for him to have there.
Right.
And, maybe if he would have stayed and had some of that fun, what happened to MJF next wouldn't have happened.
All right. But before we get to it, what do you, okay, so what were you thinking was going to happen at that point?
Well, I knew once Joe won the title.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew Adam Cole was the devil. Okay.
Okay.
Because for Joe to win the title and just leave.
Yeah, right.
And now MJF be standing there with Adam Cole, like, there's no reason to put any more sympathy on the guy in the walking cast, right?
Right.
He's not the point. He's not the protagonist of this story.
Right.
This is all about Max, right?
Right.
So I knew that it was going to end up being Adam Cole as the devil. I really, really liked the way they did the reveal.
Yeah.
And I know last week I said that if they did the reveal and it was certain people, then the whole thing was garbage.
Right. Right.
After seeing it and the way everything unfolded, I've changed my stance on that, and I'm going to tell you why. I said last week that if it ended up being Wardlow or Roddy Strong and the Kingdom or Adam Cole, and it turned out to be all 5 of them, that they might as well put out of business on the door or close up
Right.
shop. I don't remember exactly what I
Yes.
said.
Yes.
However, the minute Samoa Joe won the title and walked away with it, that makes whatever happens next okay. Because whatever this bullshit is, it's not tying up the world heavyweight title.
Right. True.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it didn't have to be, that didn't have to be John Cena coming out from underneath the mask,
Right.
because now this is officially not the most important thing that they're doing.
Right.
Right? Like, this is like, as soon as Joe walked away with
Yeah.
the title, this became like an upper mid card
Correct.
type of situation here.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt anymore.
Right.
I liked the way where it looked like Adam Cole was about to get hit
Yes.
and the lights went out, because it made me think just for a second, oh, is somebody coming to help them?
Right.
Or are we going to find out who the real devil is here?
Right.
And then when the lights came back and his hair was in his face and he was sitting in the chair, and they were behind him, and the most important part was the second the lights came up and that camera shot happened, 10,000 people went, ooh, which
Right.
what the crowd does that you're watching on TV,
Right.
it tells you.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it immediately made it more important to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I was like, wait a minute, this is fucking cool now. And then there are certain things that it has retconned, and there are certain things that it's buried the logic on. Like, now there's all of this time of Roddy Strong being a whiny, sniveling little pussy. Like, now we know that was a head game. You know what I mean? They've corrected that.
Right. Hopefully,
That was all part of this ploy.
Right.
The whole time where Adam Cole was putting up with Roddy Strong, behaving that way, like it was part of the plan. Taven and Bennett, they were just acting stupid, but now again, it was the only thing that stands out like a sore thumb to me here is Wardlow.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is, like, a year and a half ago, Wardlow beat the teetotal shit out of MJF in like 39 seconds on pay-per-view. But now he's going to be a stooge for a guy who has been unable to beat MJF.
Right.
Right? So now you've got the Kingdom and Wardlow, one of these things is not like the others.
Right. Right.
He's the only one there that can stand up and go, "Oh, I beat that guy."
Right.
When they took their masks off, Roddy gave the goddamnedest flying jumping knee strike to MJF.
Right.
It looked great, and I just think, I think that whole thing came together well. They needed Samoa Joe to walk out with the title for that to be smart and logical and valuable. And I think Samoa Joe knew that, and I'm willing to bet that Tony Khan didn't. And Samoa Joe was probably like, listen, you're going to get shit on here if I don't walk away with this belt.
Yeah.
So, what did you think?
Yeah, I kind of expected it to be Adam Cole, like Smart Money was, and just like you said, it all kind of came together. That was the thing that I liked the most, was how they did it, though, because if somebody in a mask just came down and then pulled their mask out, like pulled it
Yeah.
off. Yeah, it would have been like, like, yeah. So they did it really, really cool. I thought it was done really well. One of the few things that they've done well there. Yeah, luckily this elevates everybody, including Roddy and then and all those guys. But yeah, I didn't. I mean, I saw that Wardlow kind of sticks out, but I didn't really think of it, I guess, the way you did, like as in depth, just because like I thought, all right, so they got the muscle in the back, like,
Yeah.
and then I thought, I don't like Wardlow playing support like that. Like, he kind of in this role, he's gonna be the Batista of Evolution, where
The Lex Luger.
yeah, like exactly, like just the muscle. So it should be interesting. I mean, I like me some heel Adam Cole,
Yep.
and Roddy too, like when they're taking it serious. So hopefully, uh, they all get tans and take it serious and have some good matches. I mean, that right there, that stable could really do well if everyone's put in the same place. I would like to see it more like a Four Horsemen where they kind of dominate AEW for some time. And then whenever they do War Games, I guess it will be their War Games team, I guess,
Yeah. Well,
I'm just, or whatever they call it. But
don't give Tony any ideas because he'll do one on Wednesday.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, so I mean it's good. I think it was done really well. I really enjoyed like the clip I saw of it. I thought it was really good. I love the crowd reaction. That's probably their first time, right? That they've got a crowd reaction like that.
Yep.
In all
The one that
honesty,
they were trying to get
yes,
all across the board. Yep.
Yes. Like that was honestly the first thing that I thought. I was like, holy shit, is like a WWE writer there, like
Yeah.
that figured all this out at the end. Yeah, and then of course it's casted perfectly. And then there's questions because it's like, what is, like, in my mind, I'm thinking all those, Kingdom guys are friends. So we all know that, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wardlow would be the wild card in that group. Like, does he turn on Cole and beat the shit out of him one day and clean house and blah blah blah, and does he drag MJF up off his feet one day and they stare at each other and hug? Like, there's different things that could happen, I guess,
Mhm.
Mhm. No, I'm excited for that. I'm excited for that group and for the legs it could have. Now, what AEW does with it is very much could be completely different, But if those guys do have good control, which I'm sure that a lot of them do, as for what they do, it would kind of be cool if they like ran roughshod through like AEW, and then once they establish dominance, like all of them pop up on Ring of Honor and like take the belt off Kingston, like put it on Roderick or something like that. I don't know, like kind of running roughshod like an NWO type thing all through all the TV shows.
Right.
I mean, that's an option.
I'm curious to see the promo on Wednesday. This just made Dynamite must-see TV for me because as much as I like all of this, I don't understand the purpose in any of it while you just let the world title. Like, why let the world title? So what's their goal? You know what I mean?
Right.
They basically just put the world title on somebody else's waist and let him walk away. So what's their incentive here?
Is it something like, is MJF really leaving and this is them exiting MJF? Right. And then are they looking at it like, once we get rid of MJF, we can chase the world title or something like that. Like, I mean, yeah, there's different and that angle is really supposed to be the start, and it, you know, and so now it starts something big. So yeah, I mean, you're right. I am curious what's going to happen Wednesday and who talks and who does what of the group, you know. So
Well, we're just going to spend another minute talking about who talks, because we need to talk about Tony Khan at the media scrum.
oh boy,
Did you see him?
I saw the Tony Storm thing was the one that I watched, challenging Wendy Richter.
Yeah, but
Which
bro,
was awesome.
so you're sitting there, you're at the media scrum, and you've got this ridiculous hat on,
Yeah.
and these ridiculous sunglasses. Somebody asks you about sexual harassments running rampant in your locker room,
Oh
and
man.
your first thought isn't to be like, I'd like to address this situation. Like,
Right.
that guy, somebody had to come up to him and be like, hey, Tony, take the fucking hat and sunglasses off. And then that dipshit goes, oh, I didn't even realize I was still wearing them. Bro, what planet is this fucking guy on?
I have no idea. So what
Um,
was the remarks? What was said about it then?
he did his typical. You ever like really listen to him answer any type of question?
Yeah, it's annoying.
Because he doesn't.
He doesn't. He talks about everything else and
Right.
the shows and the
Yeah.
great matches and the great talent and the
Yes.
great
And then
and
you're
all the
just so happy when he
greats.
finishes speaking that you forgot that he didn't even
Yeah,
answer the question.
right.
But
So
he
he
was
did
like,
that.
"Oh, we've got the safest locker rooms, the
No,
safest locker room policies. No place is safer." He went full Donald Trump. There's no
okay.
place safer than my locker rooms. My
Right.
locker room's the safest. It's
Right.
terrific. It's huge. You're
Right.
so safe in my locker rooms.
Right.
Uh, just absurd.
Right.
Interesting note. Everybody seems to think that Andrade is finished up. And as of today, MJF has been removed from the AEW roster page.
I did see that earlier. I didn't know if it was true or not. Um, so I'm real curious what's going on now.
Well, we'll have to find out. I'm hopeful that he just goes away for a while and comes back old MJF.
Right. Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
I'm most hopeful that he ends up on a TV show that airs on Monday night or Friday night
Hmm.
in front of actual viewers.
Yeah.
But that remains to be seen. But you got anything else you want to add or mention about this show, Rick?
Nope. It'll be interesting to see what happens, who talks, who says what, is what I'm most curious about on a Dynamite now.
Look at that. Congratulations, AEW. You've made us look forward to watching your TV show on Wednesday night.
Good start to 2024 for them.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And I'm about to have a good start to Monday Night Raw. Day one here.
Oh yeah.
So supposedly they're going to have a former champion who's not on the roster show back up. So we'll see how that goes, and I guess we'll talk about it next week. But hey, Rick,
Yeah.
Happy New Year, buddy.
Happy New Year.
All right, Motherfluxxers, this is the end of our episode. This has been Podfluxxx, episode number 37. Happy fucking New Year.